something unsettling about places where human civilization suddenly stopped, leaving empty spaces across Oregon. In a land where dense rainforests stretch toward the edge of the inland desert, history holds a series of dark stories: failed gold ambitions, disasters that erased business districts, and old paranoia frozen beneath the ground. Here, towns do not simply decay physically. They carry the trauma of failed social experiments, hidden underground crimes, and crushing isolation. This is an in-depth journey through 15 of Oregon's most haunting towns and locations, all standing beneath the shadow of the state's past. First, we begin at one of the strangest towns associated with Oregon's haunted reputation. Set in the dry desert landscape of Wasco County, Shaniko stands as one of the state's most iconic true ghost towns. It offers a raw and eerie view of an abandoned Wild West settlement. Along its windswept dirt roads stand an old Victorian wooden hotel and a former town hall with its wooden doors nailed shut. In the early 20th century, the town proudly called itself the wool capital of the world, shipping millions of pounds of wool through the regional railroad. That sudden prosperity collapsed when the main rail route was redirected, isolating Shaniko and draining its population until only silent, empty spaces remained. Today, the town's absolute stillness, combined with the harsh desert sun, creates a deeply isolated atmosphere and reinforces its status as a monument to commercial glory now left to decay with time. Next, we travel into the hills of Baker County to trace the industrial remains of Sumpter. Born as a noisy gold mining town in the late 19th century, Sumpter once attracted thousands of fortune seekers before a massive fire in 1917 destroyed most of its business district and ended the golden age of this mountain settlement. Today, Sumpter's eerie atmosphere is dominated by the Sumpter Valley Gold Dredge, a massive multi-level steel mining machine that now sits silent in the middle of a murky artificial pond. This rusting mechanical monster is surrounded by enormous piles of gravel left behind by past dredging operations that scarred the surrounding landscape. The sight of this giant industrial ruin in a quiet valley creates a powerful dystopian image of human greed leaving permanent wounds on nature. Deep inside the forests of southern Oregon, we find the remains of Golden, a mining ghost town in Josephine County. Founded in the mid-19th century beside a gold-bearing stream, Golden was a unique small town that banned saloons and gambling halls, making it a deeply religious pioneer settlement before it was completely abandoned after the gold ran out. Today, it is preserved as a historic site frozen in time. Beneath towering evergreen trees stand an unpainted wooden church, a one-room schoolhouse, and pioneer homes with walls darkened by age. The thin mist that often settles over Golden Valley creates a strong rural Gothic atmosphere, as though the prayers of long-dead miners still echo among the decaying wooden structures. Next, leaving the silence of Golden behind, the journey moves deep into the forests of the Blue Mountains to examine the ghost town of Bourne. This place deserves attention because it offers a striking image of a dead town aggressively reclaimed by the mountain wilderness. Explorers passing through the area will find only the remains of wooden miners' cabins crushed by snow and falling trees, leaning stone chimneys, and the ruins of gold processing equipment buried beneath thick brush. Once a lawless mining town in Baker County that fueled massive speculation in mining stocks, Bourne collapsed suddenly after an investment fraud scandal and the closure of its major mines. The deep silence of Bourne, combined with the cold flow of the nearby creek, creates a powerful image of total isolation in an abandoned settlement. Leaving the hills of the Blue Mountains, we arrive in Buncom, a former mining and farming settlement in Jackson County. Founded in the 1850s after gold was discovered in southern Oregon, Buncom served as a supply center and post office for rural residents before postal operations ended in 1918, pushing the town into complete abandonment. Today, Buncom centers around 3 surviving wooden buildings at a quiet dirt road intersection: the former post office, a general store, and a storage barn. Weather-beaten wooden walls and rusted metal roofs stand silently beneath ancient oak trees. Buncom carries a heavy rural sadness, offering a clear image of a former stopping point that is now completely dead. Antelope carries an equally disturbing historical trauma. This small town became the setting for one of the most unsettling events in modern American history during the 1980s, when followers of the radical Rajneesh movement, led by Bhagwan Shree Rajneesh, took control of the local government. They even changed the town's name and carried out the first major bioterrorist attack in the United States by spreading salmonella bacteria in public facilities. The physical landscape here, along with the former Rajneeshpuram commune, still carries an atmosphere of social horror and paranoia. Rows of old wooden homes stand near the remains of a vast ranch where members of the movement once built extensive infrastructure. The traces of extreme ideological conflict and the fear experienced by local residents make Antelope one of Oregon's darkest and most emotionally oppressive historical locations. Moving into the isolated desert landscape of Deschutes County, we arrive at Millican, a ghost town known for its unusual status. Located along Route 20, Millican holds a unique place in American population history. For decades, it had only one resident, who served as mayor, gas station attendant, and town caretaker, before its final owner was tragically killed in a murder during the 1980s. Today, it resembles a completely dead and dried-out roadside settlement. An abandoned gas station made of wood and peeling concrete stands rigid in the middle of a vast, barren desert. Faded signs and leaning wooden utility poles reinforce the absolute loneliness of a town whose survival once depended on a single life. From the silence of Millican, our journey moves to the dry, rocky canyons of Wheeler County to examine Mitchell's history of disaster. This small town, surrounded by steep cliffs, carries deep historical trauma from devastating flash floods that repeatedly struck and destroyed its commercial district throughout the 20th century. Though less obvious, Mitchell presents a landscape that feels both resilient and disturbingly fragile. Rows of old frontier-style wooden buildings line a narrow road at the bottom of the canyon, beneath unstable red cliffs. Its geographic isolation and the constant threat of another flood create the feeling of a small town waiting for the next disaster. Moving into rural Jefferson County, we find Ashwood, an old silver mining and ranching settlement. It grew rapidly around the turn of the 20th century after silver and gold were discovered, but declined sharply as the mines produced less and local transportation routes deteriorated. Today, Ashwood offers the image of a desert ghost town slowly falling apart. An empty multi-story wooden schoolhouse, old stores with tightly locked doors, and workers' homes with collapsed roofs stand silently among dry grasslands. Harsh desert winds break the silence, showing how a former industrial settlement has faded into a shadow beneath the Oregon sun. Leaving the desert behind, we turn to Baker City's Gothic history. Once called the Queen City of the Inland Empire during the gold mining boom, Baker City preserves grand 19th century stone architecture, now shadowed by ghost stories and post-industrial population decline. The center of Baker City's haunted reputation is the Geyser Grand Hotel, a magnificent 19th century building widely known as one of the Pacific Northwest's most haunted places. Cold carpeted hallways, antique crystal chandeliers, and creaking wooden floors provide the setting for many reports of supernatural activity. Baker City presents a historic town where architectural elegance blends with a distinctly Western form of Gothic darkness. Including Portland here may seem unusual, yet the city has a dark urban history. Beneath its modern reputation, Old Portland carries the grim legacy of its 19th century port era, when men were allegedly kidnapped and forced to work aboard ships through underground passages known as the Shanghai Tunnels. The historic district reveals an unsettling contrast between modern life above and dark brick corridors below. These damp, cold, narrow tunnels carry stories of confinement and past crimes. That eerie atmosphere extends to unusual places like Rimsky-Korsakoffy, an unmarked old coffee house filled with mysterious decorations and moving interior features that reinforce Portland's eccentric and unsettling side. At Oregon's northwestern edge in Clatsop County, our journey reaches the old port city of Astoria. Located at the mouth of the Columbia River facing the Pacific Ocean, Astoria carries a long history of shipwrecks in the dangerous waters called the Graveyard of the Pacific, along with memories of isolation and devastating fires. Astoria is defined by steep hills covered with old Victorian wooden homes overlooking dark, foggy water. Former hospitals and abandoned quarantine facilities near the river give the area a cold, haunting presence. Thick fog often covers the massive steel bridge and moss-covered wooden docks, making Astoria one of the Pacific Coast's most atmospheric port cities. From the coast, our journey moves inland through the forests of Columbia County to Vernonia. The town deserves a place on this list because of the massive brick ruins of a former sawmill, now abandoned beside a marsh. Thick, cracked concrete walls, covered in moss and wild plants, create a deeply bleak post-industrial landscape. Once a major lumber processing center built around the Oregon American Lumber Company, Vernonia has also been repeatedly struck by severe flooding from the Nehalem River, submerging homes and damaging public facilities. Vernonia offers a clear picture of a small town struggling to survive under the constant threat of flooding and economic decline. Deep inside the Tillamook State Forest in Tillamook County, we find one of Oregon's strangest place names, Idiotville. Once an isolated logging camp beside a creek, the location reportedly earned its name from the local belief that only an idiot would live and work somewhere that remote. Today, Idiotville has completely collapsed into a true ghost town hidden beneath the Pacific rainforest. Explorers will no longer find intact buildings, only rusted machine parts, broken bricks, and wooden foundations buried under moss and giant ferns. The heavy silence beneath the dense evergreens reinforces Idiotville's status as a settlement completely erased by nature. Our journey ends somewhat differently by following the Highway 30 corridor from Knappa to Rainier along the Columbia River. This riverside highway is lined with the remains of former lumber towns, loading docks, and worker housing that declined after the coastal timber industry collapsed. A camera traveling along Highway 30 would capture a post-industrial landscape stretching for miles. Rotting wooden dock pilings rise from the dark river beside Main Street storefronts sealed with plywood and abandoned multi-story wooden homes. Thick river fog and the smell of wet timber complete the journey, making this one of Oregon's bleakest and quietest highway corridors. Exploring these 15 locations across Oregon reveals how history, disaster, and industrial collapse shape the atmosphere of a place. From isolated desert ghost towns like Shaniko and Millican to locations marked by disturbing social memories like Antelope and Portland, and the decaying industrial landscape along Highway 30, each shows how human civilization leaves behind a powerful psychological shadow. Weathered architecture and nature reclaiming the land remain as silent witnesses. In the end, these places remind us that beneath Oregon's natural beauty, former prosperity can quickly fade into empty spaces filled with lasting mystery.